Hello, everybody. It's Clarissa Burt here. We are in the Limelight yet again this week with our live, as we do every couple of weeks with domesticshelters.org. We're going to say good morning to Ashley Rumschlag. She is the VP of Domestic Services at Domestic Shelters. So good to see you this morning, Ashley.
Great to see you too, Clarissa.
You too. We are here, as we all know, it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October, and we are going out a little bit more than normal, a little more than usual, and for the very first time, we're having a guest join us, someone that I came to learn about very recently, and that I think is going to be an extraordinary guest for this show. I would love to introduce to you Monique Faison Ross, and we're going to be learning a lot more about her book, her award-winning book. She's going to tell us all about that, called Playing Dead. Ladies, this is an extraordinary time that we're living in, especially during COVID. We know that there have been spikes in domestic violence and that women and children are having some and not only, there are some men too, that are having very difficult times and not knowing exactly what to do or where to go. This is why I love getting on as much as I do with Domestic Shelters so that we continue the story. But when we come over to Monique's story, I really don't know where to start, because it is there's so much here that I want to start breaking it down. Monique, you were married. I think that if I remember correctly, did you have to get married? Was that the case scenario here? No,
we didn't have to. I wanted to. I was pregnant, and so I didn't want to have be unmarried.
Okay. I remember that in the story that you had that I read when I was doing my research. And so you got married, you were young, you started having a family and your children, and the gentleman that is a part of this story toward the end of the marriage started to change. Can you explain to us how so?
I think it was there all along. I think that he was who he is all along. I just didn't see it. And because I remained in the marriage, little things started to happen from the very beginning. He was very suspicious about who I was talking to, if I was talking about him, if I was staying. He always made promises he didn't keep. I'll be better. I won't be explosive. He wasn't violent physically for many years until the end when I decided to leave. So the signs were all there. I just didn't recognize them to be as serious as they should have been.
In pre-show, we were talking for a few minutes, and you had said also there was some financial abuse, a little bit of controlling around money.
Yes. We didn't have much money. We were married young, so there were always arguments about money. I always worked and was always focused on the kids, providing them quality food and keeping them in good schools. And there were always arguments about that. Yeah. It was when I left him that the financial abuse became abundantly clear. The goal was to send me running back to him because I couldn't support myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Promises he had made to help me survive never came through.
Right. So give me an idea as to when we're talking about. Are we going back 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, it is. Well, we were married in 1984. I left in 1997. Yeah. So,
the possibilities
we were married.
Not as abundant then for women. Let's put it that way. I mean, we were doing better in those years, but not quite. Especially when it came to leaving a family, leaving your husband. There were still a lot of issues and difficulties, as they are still today. But I think it was a little bit more difficult then. There was so much pressure from maybe your church or your family or friends, children. It wasn't as prevalent then to just get up and leave. And women, were very oftentimes did not know exactly how they would be financially independent. Ashley and I have talked about this many different times, Ashley, about, women and not being able to get up or not thinking that they could get up and move on because they don't know how they would support themselves. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Oh, Ashley. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ashley.
No, I was just going to bring light to the fact that financial abuse is so common. There's even the stat that 99% of abusive, relationships or just abusive situations, financial abuse does occur. So it's very common.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to fast forward a little bit, Monique, only for the sake of time, because I could be here with you all day talking about this story. And again, kudos for the awards that you're winning on the book. We're going to get to that. I'm going to actually show it just for a moment. Playing Dead. There it is, everybody. That's the cover of the book, a memoir of terror and survival. We're going to get there in just a minute and find out exactly why it was as horrific as it was. But the book is really being recognized, and you're winning so many awards. I want us to get to that in a minute, but also let's get to that part of the story. You get to a point in your marriage where you just can't take it anymore, and you say, I'm leaving. And for the first 3 months after you take the children and leave, things seem to be okay.
He seemed to take it well. He seemed to take it well. It was about 6 months, 6 or 7 months. And that's when he was making promises he's going to help. He never did financially. He was going to do this, that, and the other thing. And he was in the military being paid for having a family, and never helped once I left. So we seemed to get along, other than his lack of help financially. I thought, this is going to be great. He talked to me about people he was dating. I thought, this is wonderful. We're going to co-parent. He's going to realize that we are both better people apart, and we can be better parents to the kids. And, I thought things were fine. And then about 6, 7 months into it, I went on a date with someone at work, and I mentioned it to him because why wouldn't I? He was talking about people he was dating.
Right.
And it was that morning, our lives changed forever. The moment I told him.
Yeah. In which way? What happened?
He started stalking me 24 hours a day. I don't know how he slept, how he worked. He stalked me and the guy I dated constantly. Like, life went into a tailspin. He was questioning the kids, what was going on. He would circle my apartment. He'd be on foot. He led him in a high-speed chase. I mean,
now that you knew of at the time, did he have guns, or,
he didn't.
He was, okay. All right. So, okay. So you never thought that we go down that kind of a path.
No, the stalking, I immediately, and the guy I was dating, had to get an injunction for protection 2 weeks into our first date.
Right. Wow.
Because he was, he completely went off the rails. And I think that the only reason he hadn't before that, when I say that it was always there, is because I wasn't seeing anyone else, or I had stayed in the marriage, even though it was hostile and a volatile marriage. So
how long did the stalking go on before the fatal day?
3 months. 3 months
stalking.
And he was in and out of jail. Every time he'd show up at court, the bond would get raised higher and higher till his parents eventually had to put their house for his bond to be released, their San Diego house, which ultimately, by the way, they lost. And because of him breaking the terms of the bond.
You had gone after orders of protection at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had to post bond in order to stay out of jail.
Yeah.
And he continued his behavior. He's very well spoken, well dressed, had a private attorney, which his parents paid for. And he would say, "Yes, Your Honor, I understand, Your Honor." Very respectfully, he would leave court and pick up where he left off.
Well, Ashley and I had this conversation last week about it. As I was telling you, Monique, before Ashley got on, there was a case here in Phoenix about 3 weeks ago and we had this conversation about, what does a court order really mean unless it's being enforced? But I digress. Let us move forward. So let's get to we could be here all day on that. Let's get to the fatal day, ladies. Let's get to the fatal day, Monique, when you are then abducted in front of your 2 small children. One, I believe your daughter was 9, your son was 4. I'm assuming he shows up to the house. Tell me what happens now.
It was Monday morning. I was taking them to school, which was just down the street, and we were leaving my apartment, and I saw him running at me. He had been there, I presume, all night, waiting for us to walk out.
Okay, great.
And ran at me with a gun, and I was frozen.
So he did get a gun somewhere along the way.
Well, actually, it ended up being a fake gun, but I didn't know that. It looked real. Okay. And because with an injunction for protection, I presume he couldn't get his hands on one legally quickly. But, it's the same thing if you walk into a convenience store with a fake gun that looks real.
Right. Sure.
It's still armed
Oh,
robbery
absolutely.
because the teller believes it's real.
Absolutely.
So I thought that it was real. He was running at me. I thought any moment I was going to be shot. I could not will myself to protect my children. And, everybody thinks that they know exactly what they'll do. I was so frozen in fear. They were right next to me. And he also brought a butcher knife with him, which he dropped in my struggle to stay out of the car.
Right.
He was trying to get me into the car to take me away, which ultimately he did.
So
And
now I'm assuming your children are in front. You're at your house, so they were semi-safe somewhere. But were they left when you were whisked away and abducted?
Yeah.
Were they left alone to their own devices, or was there someone else close by?
My next door neighbor's teenage daughter, without fear of her own safety, flung open the door and screamed to them to come to her, while her parents were trying to get me help, call the police.
Right.
She called to them and said, "Don't listen to them. Don't listen to him. Come to me." And they did, thankfully.
And in other shows, Ashley, and I, Ashley, you know how many times we've talked about the long-lasting effects of PSTD, whether it be to the victim herself or himself or the children when they witness something as horrific as this.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
true.
that's what I was going to ask. I can't imagine the way that just that initial trauma, obviously things unfolded in a much, worse light later on, but I just can't imagine how that was, you were able to overcome that initial trauma. Certainly PTSD comes into play there.
Yeah, for sure. It changes you forever.
So he manages to get you in the car, Monique, and then take us from there.
So we speed away because he knows the police is going to be searching for him. I averaged 10 911 phone calls every week during the 3 months of stalking, where he'd pop up here, there, or wherever. I was grocery shopping. It didn't matter where I went. And so he whisked me away. He said, "I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you." Till eventually I believed that that's all he wanted to do was just talk to me. And I spent about 6 hours, and several other things happened during that time. But I spent 6 hours trying to convince him to turn himself in. His parents' house was on the line. I said, "What are you doing to the kids? You haven't done anything at this point. That is so horrific. I'll go with you and wait for the police to come. I'll go with you and wait for them." And he said, "Okay, I'm ready now." And that was never his plan. So he said, "Let's look at this house over here." We were in Florida, where new houses are being erected all the time in this new subdivision. And I thought, why does he want to look at this house over here? And my gut began but I thought, I just am desperate to get to my children. And a friend had all 3 kids who she was holding them and had police protection. But he said, "Let's look at this house." So I thought, is he wanting to, think about when we were going to buy a house there? I just didn't know. So I went in keeping a distance from him. He went through the door that was unlocked. And he opened the garage, and I saw the light shining through, and he said, "You can get out over here." So I thought, okay. And so I hesitantly moved towards the garage, and he moved. The house, the yard had just been landscaped. He moved a full-length shovel out of the group of yard tools that were in the garage. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Oh, I just wanted to see what they had." And at that moment, I knew, and I turned to run, and it was too late. And, in retrospect, it was clear he never intended to let me go. He tried all sorts of things in those 6 hours we were together. He convinced me that I was going to be back with the kids soon, and that was never his intent. If my car didn't break down and a kind gentleman didn't help me ultimately, I wouldn't be here. I'm sure of it.
Well, there must have been a certain will to live, but I want to get to that part. Ashley, I know I'm absolutely, this is the kind of story that you and I just absolutely cannot even believe exists, but it does all the time. I find
Yeah.
myself sometimes at a loss for proper wording when I do these interviews. But anyway, so he grabs the shovel, and at that point, is that when he starts swinging? What happened? I don't want to take you back
Well,
to
first,
anything you don't want to tell us, but I know you've written it in the book, so I'm sure you wouldn't mind
yeah,
sharing.
it's he slammed my head on the garage floor at first, I guess to daze me and to make me not, fight. And then the blows with the shovel came, and that first blow, not to be graphic, the power and blood splattered on this brand new garage cement floor. And I guess he saw that it was going to be messy or someone might drive by and see. So he picked me up, me and the shovel, and carried me across the street to a heavily wooded area so I wouldn't be found, and continued banging in my head and checked my pulse and said, "You're not dead yet." So he knew, and the only way, that was his intent, was to leave me dead or dying. And the only way I could hope and pray to survive is to just not answer. He said, "Can you hear me?" And I could hear him,
Right.
but I didn't answer. And I just pretended that I had been knocked out.
Right. So he started with the dazing of on the one side, takes you over to the other side, and starts to hit you with the shovel.
Yeah.
About your head mostly.
Yeah, it was all my head and fingers, because my fingers were first blocking, and then he moved them out of the way after he checked my pulse and saw that I was still alive. He moved my fingers out of the way so he could get a clean shot.
So then he said, "Are you alive? Are you alive?" And you stopped answering him, and that's when he left.
I didn't answer. And I heard him, not being fearful to look, I heard him walk away in the woods on the leaves and sticks, in that area, and throw the shovel. But I didn't know if he was sitting down watching me. I didn't know what he was doing. So I just laid there. And the detective, when he and I retraced our steps, he said I was probably out about 45 minutes. And it started to rain, and I was shivering, and I could barely see by then. So 45 minutes of having your head, hit multiple times, my eyes were almost swollen shut completely.
Okay. Somewhere in you found the will to not give in. And I'm going to assume that your 3 children were forefront in your mind at this point. And you start crawling. If I remember correctly, your story, you start crawling toward the street.
Yeah, I couldn't crawl on my hands because my fingers were broken, but I hoisted myself up and so I'm half clothed now, stagger, and I see a man at the end of the other side, in front of that house that we were at, sitting there drinking something hot, coffee, hot chocolate, I don't know. And I stagger out towards him, but I collapse in the street. So he gets out of the car and runs over to me, and he said, "I'll get you help. I'll be right back." And I hoisted myself up again and said, "Please don't leave me." But that man was older, and if he was anywhere near my soon-to-be ex-husband, he would have killed him.
Yeah. So your ex-husband was not anywhere on the premises. He had left. This gentleman finds you. He gets you the help you need. You're now in the hospital. Okay. And so you're in the hospital, and at the same time, the police are looking for your husband.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. This is the stuff that movies are made for. Ashley, please jump in whenever you want to. Let me, if you've got a question that comes to mind, please let me know. But I'm so enthralled by this story that we'll get. So
I'm kind of with you. It's hard to come up with words.
Yeah, it's really hard to interject. I know, but it's
I really appreciate you sharing this.
It's not because I've forgotten about you at all, because domesticshelters.org is so important, and we will get to why I think it is, and we all think it is in a moment. If you just bear with me.
Please keep going.
And so you're in the hospital. The police are looking for your husband. There's an altercation between the police and your husband. Please do tell.
Yeah. So he somehow, they were guarding his apartment looking for him. I mean, they were all hands on deck. The undersheriff had called in people that were, excuse me, that had been off from work. He wanted him found, and everyone was looking for him. So his apartment was guarded, but at some point he slipped back in there and got a kitchen knife again and came out. They spotted him. It was in the wee hours of the morning, so it was dark. And a rookie cop who it wasn't his beat. He was called in to help, spotted him, told him to get on the ground. And he went into Florida. I don't know if you're familiar, have those water collection culverts that, are in the ground and they collect water. So he ran in there and came charging at the cop with a knife raised, and he was shot.
More than once.
Yeah. He was shot at 6 times, I think, and hit 3 times. So they immediately handcuffed him and also immediately called for help. So he was ambulanced or life-flighted, like I was. And then the nearest trauma hospital he ended up at as well. I was in the ICU. He ended up in the same ICU. Yeah.
He was like down the hall or something.
Yes.
Which is craziness.
Crazy.
And the crazy part is because if I can I say about the families?
Yeah, sure.
The families, obviously they're showing up for you, they're showing up for him, and now they're starting to, fight between themselves in the corridors of the hospital. Which, again, you can't make this stuff up. This not even Hollywood is this good, And so, okay, take us forward to the story from here on out. Thank God you're fine. You're well. You're not in the hospital that long because they did enough testing to know that there was no brain damage. I think you had
right.
Okay. And so now you're home after 48 hours or something like that.
Right. About that. And I'm all stitched up. I'm all like plums, my eyes. And I had an Aspen collar I had to wear for some god awful number of days to make sure that I didn't have spinal issues.
Right.
And so I'm home, and he was in the hospital for months. But it just goes to show PTSD is a horrible thing, because even though he was under guard the entire time in the hospital, I was still fearful, because, after you've been stalked and you think that this person, I just wanted a divorce. People do it every single day.
Right.
How murder became his goal in game.
Yeah.
I'll never understand.
Yeah. I'm going to show again the book, everyone. It's Playing Dead, a memoir of terror and survival. Monique Faison Ross. And let me just give a shout out to our good friend Gary Krebs, who co-wrote the book with you. He's also co-writing my book, which is how you and I met. So Gary is, I know that he's watching, and I'm sure he's very proud. I'd like to wrap up the story a moment so that we can move on to the good things that have happened. And that is your new marriage and your book and the success around that book. So let's close up the story. The judicial process takes its course. He's sent to jail for, I believe it was 18 years, 16, 18.
Well, he plea bargained for 26 years, and he had to serve 80% of that. Then a few years into that sentence, he got a judge to feel that he was misguided by his attorney, and we agreed to 20 years, and he had to serve 80% of that. Right. So then 16 years, he's out.
He's out. He's been out since 2016, not allowed to contact you in any way. Your children have no contact with him, and I would say good riddance.
Yeah.
Good riddance. But it does still invoke Pstd and the will for you to want to recount the story, so that you might be able to help other women in their red flags that might not have been seen, and certainly were unexpected, especially in your case. It just came out of nowhere. I mean, there really was very little in the way of any precursor, if you will. I mean, some things, but not, I'm going to try to kill you or murder. So he goes to jail. He's out. Your life is moving on. So I know that you've gotten married. You are now happily married in a wonderful relationship. And you decide you're going to write the book. This book is called Playing Dead. And tell me what it was like to go through that process again, because it's almost like reliving it.
Yes. But
every interview is reliving it.
Right. But it never left. In these 23 years, it's never left me. So it never was really gone. But the process of writing a book is so difficult, just to make it flow. What's important to leave in, what's not, that's where Gary and his writing ability to bring all of the things that happened to an organized format and a way to make it readable, where people have said, I couldn't put it down, even though people close to me have had a hard time reading it because it's so upsetting to them.
Sure, of course.
But, you know, between Gary and I think it's a story that's important to be told, something that people, it could be happening to someone that they love and care about and they're unaware, because there are little things that happen that should make our eyebrows raise, or us to make a safety plan or contact like domestic shelters just to educate ourselves.
Right.
What does it look like? How can things quickly spiral out of control when we're not expecting it?
Some of the awards that you've won. I know you're waiting for another one coming in. You're waiting for some news. I don't know if you want to share that right now, but tell us the awards that the book is winning. And the book has not been out that long, which is heartening, because I know that it's a message that needs to be heard.
Yeah.
So the success of the book is certainly, I think, very telltale in the fact that, you know, people want to know more. They need to learn more. And that's why Ashley does what she does every day of the week. And Ashley and I get on every couple of weeks and make sure that we are constantly churning out information so that they're, you know, we can give as much help as we can.
Yeah. We, it's won the Reader's Favorite Gold Award, which was #1 in nonfiction true crime.
Awesome.
And then it also recently is a finalist for the Kindle Book Awards, which is highly competitive.
Wow.
And we're waiting to hear if it's won first place.
Okay.
And then the exciting news is that a producer is considering it for some other things that we can't disclose at this time. So we'll see what happens and where it goes from here. But the goal is to help other people, men and women, recognize the dangers.
Right.
And, you know, there are places like domesticshelters.org that you can just educate yourself, just
Absolutely.
learn a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
just to recognize the signs. And it may not help that person reading it, but it might help their friend, their
Absolutely.
coworker, their neighbor. It's education that I wish that I had, and I didn't, because I didn't think domestic violence applied to me.
Yeah.
Until it
and
did.
what I really,
Actually, let me throw the ball over to you. Let's talk a little bit more.
well, I just wanted, if I could, I just wanted to point out the whole idea that you mentioned and really bring light to that idea that you said that you felt it in your gut, but you know, you weren't able to react to that. And that's one of the things that I think is so important about domesticshelters.org is that the more you know, as you read these stories, you start to listen to those gut feelings and kind of start to, make your different decisions based on that. So yeah, like I appreciate you sharing, how much you think, that kind of resources would have helped you. And that's, really why we do what we do, because information is so important. It's so easy to miss the signs. And I want to reiterate, how, I know you've had to come to terms with this idea of why didn't I recognize this? Why didn't I notice this? But it's hard. I mean, it's everyone's experience is very similar in that they go through these see these red flags that are just so easily missed, until you start looking back. So yeah, that's why information is so important.
Very important.
And it almost cost me my life. Being ignorant about the signs almost cost me my life and my children, their mother. So,
which is why it's so important to tell this story, because people will see themselves in there, hopefully. And, I have no doubt that this story is going to save lives, because they are going to start, see your story and then, really, try to make a different move and hopefully avoid, similar fate.
Yes. I hope.
Well, I do have the ticker going for domesticshelters.org, everyone. Again, we get on here every couple of weeks. I think it's every other week. And with Ashley and some of the people that she works with, we've had Rita Smith and certainly Amanda Kippert. We bring forward the stories. We bring forward the help and the assistance that is out there for you. Too many women are thinking that there is no way out, and there is a way out. We're here to tell you there's a way out. Many women have found the way out. And you can get that help at domesticshelters.org. I do want to show Monique's book just one more time before we go. It is called Playing Dead, a memoir of terror and survival, written with our good friend, Gary M. Krebs. Monique, I am so thrilled for your success the amount of fortitude that you must have, my friend, to be able to come from where you were to where you are today with a happy, loving marriage and beautiful children that are thriving today is a true testament to the woman and the strength of your spirit.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you.
Thank you so much.
Being on the show. That's how quick a half an hour goes, everyone. Ashley,
Right.
anything
Yes.
you'd like to add? Ashley,
I do, yeah.
please.
I don't know how we missed this yet, but obviously it's important to share that her, Playing Dead is actually our next book club selection, which is why,
Yeah,
we've
thank
connected
you.
with Monique. So we're very excited that article will be coming out on domesticshelters.org in the next few weeks. And so we encourage everyone to read this book. It's just very powerful, and we're so thankful that, Monique, that you've shared your story, because like I said, it's going to save lives.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Actually,
I hope it does.
Like, if you wouldn't mind, Ashley, to go ahead and just very quickly, as we're in closing, if you wanted to talk about the awards, the Purple Awards.
Yes,
Oh.
Our Purple Ribbon Awards launched this month. We're gearing up for those to open up January 1st. There are over 30 categories that people can choose from, Survivor of the Year, Board Member of the Year, Law Enforcement of the Year. So there's just so many different categories to check out. So I encourage everyone to go to purpleribbon.awards.org, learn a little bit more about there, sign up to be notified when the nominations are open. So yeah, thanks for that little plug. Yeah, we're really excited about that program.
No, absolutely. And we do remind everybody again that this is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And over again, at domesticshelters.org, you can help yourself or someone that you know that might be in need. A lot of people are very shameful. We touched upon that in pre-show. People feel, a lot of shame and blame, women especially, and they don't want to, really tell their story as openly as Monique has. They keep it to themselves, and they continue to be mistreated. So let's just stop that vicious cycle, shall we? Again, I thank you all for being here with us on the show. We're going to be back again, I think, next week, aren't we, Ashley? This time,
yes,
same time next week,
Wednesday,
with another fabulous interview. So, ladies, Monique, thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
Friend, you're very welcome. And Ashley, thank you for all you do at domesticshelters.org. Bye, everybody. We'll be talking to you again soon.